Hello everyone and welcome to next episode of free videos coming to you from figuredrawingonline.com. In this one, as I already said in the introduction, what I want to show you is what I already touched on in earlier posts on the blog, which is where does the figure drawing study lead? And that essentially it leads ultimately to being able to create, to being able to form imagery involving the human body. I'm going to do a series of videos in kind of a tracking a progress of a composition that I have in mind. And this one eventually will be done in pen and ink, but for any figurative studies that I do, or any figurative pieces, I do a series of studies beforehand. And the way the studies are made is the process itself is what I call in the blog entries as the flow. When you no longer need to think about anatomy or elements of drawing, when you just develop your composition. So what I'm trying to do in this composition is I want to make a drawing of two people talking to each other. Now there needs to be a kind of an air of misunderstanding or not understanding. One of the figures that I have in mind on the left will have a kind of a pose of arrogance with a crossed arms. And the other figure on the right, I'm thinking of it will try to explain something, so there will be a fair amount of gestures involved. So essentially I'm kind of just going to indicate roughly the space that I have in a vertical direction just to be able to fit in. And I'm thinking I'm doing the same thing as I have always done in all the tutorials. I'm building the large mass first, and one of the reasons why I was using massing to define the large shapes, to define what I want to say. So essentially I'm thinking that this figure will lean to one side, kind of 3/4. So that's what I'm doing with establishing the rib cage in a kind of a 3/4 fashion. It will have somewhere on the arms crossed. Just trying to see how. See, in all of this, I'm no longer worrying about the anatomy. I'm just working out the composition, and that is the reason why it is important to do the anatomy, to go through those motions, so that when it comes to the fun stuff, when you start to create, that you're able to do it without too many hiccups, without having to stop, because then all your attention gets absorbed into thinking of anatomy. That is also the reason why I'm kind of urging everybody to do the beginner's course first, because once we cross over to the advanced course, there just won't be time to re-explain everything from the scratch. So that's somewhere the rib cage. And I'm talking about, I'm kind of going a little bit backwards here, because in order to, and I'm slowing myself down that way, because in order to kind of hand it over to you, I need to verbalize all this, which normally would be just a flow of ideas, of shapes. So there might be a few hiccups and silences along the way. I'm thinking if that body language needs to be slightly arrogant, kind of. Maybe the head. Establishing just thinking a good rhythmic movement would be, if the head is kind of tilted that way, in kind of a rejection of what the other figure will be doing, kind of explaining something. And then we have the rib cage kind of shifted this way. Maybe it would be a good idea to have this figure standing on one leg. To have the weight on one of the legs, not stand on one leg, of course, and the other one just sort of in a bit of a contrapposto. Everything I'm doing is simple massing. You can see that there's no details, really. There's no. It's really just working out the relationship in terms of mass, simple mass. So I don't get lost in the detail, and I'm constantly reshaping. I'm moving the knee up and down. I'm changing the position of the legs, and you can do that at the stage of massing. It would be much harder once you, and of course, you need to train your hand to be light. Just establishing some basic perspective. So that's where the feet would be. So this bit here needs to come in a bit. And in terms of lighting, I just do a very simple system of the light coming from the left. Single light source. So I don't have to worry too much. this is also where the anatomy kind of brings its rewards. Just being able, just knowing which are the up planes, which are the down planes, so that you can easily do this fairly coarse shading, just establishing where the light is. Needs to go a little bit higher. So this is the stage where you work out the expression. I mean, the body tilted more or less, or it carries a message. The body language is very very powerful, and everybody understands it. In many of these examples of simple shading, I'm just going over some of the muscle mass that I know is there, and you do too. I mean, it's just anatomy. So there's still a bit of uncertainty around the position of the legs. Position of feet. Alright, so maybe a bit like that. And this other figure that I was thinking to introduce, I'm just transferring the rough proportions, so the two figures are roughly of the same size. And this other figure would be maybe a little bit bent forward, the head turned a bit that way. And again, the whole thing is just essentially an exercise in simple massing, establishing where the rib cage is. And progressively, as you go over the figure again and again, it becomes clearer and clearer. It's almost like it fills itself in. with the arms. You can notice the use of the contour lines, these lines across, how beneficial they are in describing the volume. Some sort of a gesture of trying to explain something. And then the other arm, also the other hand, somewhere there. It's a very simple indication of where these elements could be. A bit of the back. Again, just indicating the position of the legs. See this immediately as I went over to this one, I realized this needs to be a little bit further back too. And all I'm doing is in terms of masses. I just hold that mass in my mind. I know, that's roughly the center point of the leg, but I know that it's going to have a certain mass. And knowing that mass and keeping it in mind is what comes about by learning the anatomy and the volume of those muscles, and just knowing. I speak and I get lost in this. I need to bring this a little bit back. Yeah, that's a little bit too tall. This other leg is a little bit better. I'm just trying to get them both to be on the same ground. Not that successfully. A bit of floating going on. But I guess that's the sole purpose of studies, just to work out these compositional elements. And so I would like this person to be head a bit tilted. So position the ear a little bit low, so it's clear that the head is tilted. There's not even enough conviction in that gesture as yet. A little bit too soft to understanding. It needs to is to be a little bit more powerful, or trying to drive the point. Again, just following the same light as we applied on the other figure, just to transfer it on this one. It's a very simple lighting, but it helps strengthen the illusion of the two figures being in the same space. Yeah, I think it's mainly the position of the legs. That stand is not too bad in kind of projecting the undismissal kind of a, you're talking to me, really, kind of a thing. Surely not to me. So that works better there. And then there's obviously problems here with the lower legs, the stand. Also that leg, it's a little bit, it's gone a little bit too far. For the knee to work. Yeah. So I think essentially you get the point of having accumulated enough knowledge to be able to just try to work on the pose, whether this guy might be actually even more bent forward, trying to make a point, have these arms maybe a little bit lower. See how fast you can work just by massing. You can really speed up the process, the creation process, if you just focus on, if you just do things in a simple shapes, simple massing. All right. So that's about it. I'll do a few more as I progress, as I will work out the details. May not be videos, it might just be stills, but either way, perhaps it's useful to you guys to see the progress of work. Alrighty, I'll see you next time.